easily overwhelmed, quickly emotional, cheaply manipulated. This is what happens when you think hot while others need you to think cold. When crisis hits, most people panic. Their thinking becomes emotional, reactive, clouded by fear and urgency. They make terrible decisions because their intelligence is compromised by their emotional state. Cold intelligence operates differently. It remains clear when everyone else is confused, analytical when everyone else is reactive, calm when everyone else is panicking. It sees reality accurately while others are distorted by emotion. This is not about suppressing emotion. This is about preventing emotion from degrading thinking quality, about maintaining analytical clarity regardless of emotional pressure, about thinking well when thinking well matters most. Most people lose intelligence capacity under stress. Their IQ effectively drops. Their judgment fails. Their decision quality collapses. They become dumber precisely when they most need to be smart. People with cold intelligence maintain full cognitive capacity under any conditions. Stress does not degrade their thinking. Panic around them does not cloud their judgment. Crisis sharpens their focus rather than scattering it. This audiobook reveals exactly how to develop cold intelligence that thinks clearly when everyone around you panics, not through emotional suppression, through systematic cognitive frameworks that separate thinking from feeling, through deliberate practices that maintain analytical clarity under pressure, through mental disciplines that prevent emotion from contaminating analysis. You will learn how elite performers think clearly in chaos, how they maintain cold analytical precision when everyone else is hot and reactive, how they make optimal decisions when others are making fear-based mistakes. Stop letting emotion degrade your intelligence. Start developing cold thinking that operates independently of emotional state. Develop cold intelligence. Now, introduction. The advantage of cold thinking in hot situations. There are two types of thinkers under pressure. The first type thinks hot. When stress increases, their thinking becomes emotional. Fear clouds judgment. Urgency drives rush decisions. Anxiety creates worst-case scenario thinking. Anger generates aggressive responses. Their intelligence is compromised by their emotional state. They become less capable precisely when capability matters most. The second type thinks cold. When stress increases, their thinking remains analytical. They separate emotion from analysis. They see situations clearly despite feeling fear or urgency. They make optimal decisions while experiencing anxiety. Their intelligence operates independently of emotional state. They remain fully capable when others are degraded. Here is what you need to understand. Cold intelligence is not about having no emotions. It is about preventing emotions from degrading cognitive function. Hot thinkers let emotion contaminate analysis. They feel fear and conclude the situation is more dangerous than it is. They feel urgency and decide before gathering sufficient information. They feel anger and choose aggressive responses that backfire. Cold thinkers feel the same emotions but do not let those emotions determine conclusions. They feel fear and still assess danger accurately. They feel urgency and still gather necessary information. They feel anger and still choose optimal strategic responses. The emotions exist. The thinking remains uncontaminated. This separation is the foundation of cold intelligence. It is trained capability, not personality trait. People with cold intelligence build it through specific mental practices. You can build the same capability. Most people never develop cold intelligence because they confuse cold thinking with emotional suppression or sociopathy. They think cold intelligence means feeling nothing. It does not. It means thinking clearly while feeling everything. The emotions are acknowledged. They provide information, but they do not make decisions. The analytical mind makes decisions based on accurate assessment of reality, not based on emotional state. Cold intelligence has 7 specific components. 7 mental capabilities that together enable clear thinking under any emotional conditions. 7 frameworks you can deliberately build to maintain analytical precision when everyone around you is panicking. These are not abstract concepts. These are practical cognitive disciplines used by people who must think clearly in crisis. Military strategists, emergency surgeons, crisis negotiators, high-stakes investors, people whose decisions determine life or death, success or catastrophic failure. They cannot afford to let emotion degrade their thinking. Neither can you. Let's examine each component. Component 1. Emotional awareness without emotional reasoning. The first component of cold intelligence is the ability to be fully aware of your emotions while preventing those emotions from determining your conclusions. Most people experience emotions and immediately let those emotions shape their thinking. They feel fear and conclude danger is high. They feel confidence and conclude success is likely. They feel anxiety and conclude something is wrong. This is emotional reasoning, using feelings as evidence about reality. I feel afraid, therefore the situation is dangerous. The emotion becomes the basis for conclusion. Cold intelligence separates awareness from reasoning. You can be completely aware that you feel fear while simultaneously analyzing whether the situation is actually dangerous based on evidence, not feeling. Here is how to develop emotional awareness without emotional reasoning deliberately. First, label emotions explicitly without acting on them. Most people feel emotions and immediately react. Fear appears, they avoid. Anger appears, they attack. The emotion triggers automatic response. Cold intelligence inserts pause. When emotion appears, label it explicitly. I am feeling fear right now. I notice anger emerging. Anxiety is present. This labeling creates separation. You are observing the emotion rather than being consumed by it. The emotion exists. You are aware of it, but you have not yet let it determine action. Second, ask what the emotion is signaling, not what it is concluding. Emotions provide information. Fear signals potential threat. Anger signals perceived violation. Anxiety signals uncertainty. But the signal is not the conclusion. Fear signals pay attention to potential threat. It does not conclude the threat is real and you must flee. Anxiety signals there is uncertainty here. It does not conclude something bad will happen. Cold thinkers ask, what is this emotion telling me to pay attention to? Then they analyze that area with cold logic, not with the emotion itself. Third, explicitly separate how you feel from what you think. Most people blend these completely. I feel this way, therefore I think this is true. Cold thinkers maintain explicit separation. I feel afraid. That is my emotional state. Now, what do I think about this situation based on evidence? The feeling is acknowledged. The thinking proceeds independently. This can be done out loud or in writing for high-stakes decisions. Emotional state. Significant anxiety. Analytical assessment. Risk is moderate, manageable with preparation. Fourth, recognize that emotions are reactions to perceptions, not to reality. You do not feel emotions about objective reality. You feel emotions about your interpretation of reality. And interpretations can be wrong. Fear emerges because you interpreted something as threatening, but your interpretation might be incorrect. The thing might not actually be threatening. Your emotion is real. Your interpretation might not be. Cold intelligence questions interpretations even while acknowledging emotions. I feel fear. What interpretation generated this fear? Is that interpretation accurate? Fifth, use physical sensations as emotion indicators before they become thoughts. Emotions create physical sensations before they become conscious thoughts. Tension, racing heart, shallow breathing, tightness. Cold thinkers notice physical sensations early. They recognize my body is reacting emotionally before the emotion fully forms into conscious feeling and thought. This early detection allows intervention. You notice physical stress response. You can deliberately slow breathing, relax muscles, prevent the physical state from escalating into emotional reasoning. Here is what makes emotional awareness without reasoning sustainable. It honors emotions while protecting thinking. You are not suppressing. You are acknowledging. But you are not letting acknowledgement become conclusion. Over time, this separation becomes automatic. You can feel intense emotion while simultaneously thinking clearly. The two operate in parallel. Neither compromises the other. Practice emotional awareness without reasoning deliberately. Label emotions explicitly without acting on them. Ask what emotions signal, not what they conclude. Separate how you feel from what you think. Recognize emotions react to interpretations, not reality. Use physical sensations as early warning. Develop ability to feel everything while thinking clearly about reality. This is the first component of cold intelligence. Component 2. Systematic reality testing under emotional pressure. The second component of cold intelligence is the ability to test your perceptions against reality when emotions are trying to distort those perceptions. Emotions create cognitive biases. Fear makes threats seem larger. Confidence makes success seem more likely. Anger makes provocations seem intentional. Anxiety makes uncertainty seem unbearable. These distortions feel like accurate perceptions. You genuinely believe you are seeing reality clearly, but you are seeing reality through emotional filter. Cold intelligence uses systematic reality testing to check whether perceptions match actual reality or are being distorted by emotional state. Here is how to practice systematic reality testing deliberately. First, force yourself to generate counter-evidence to emotionally driven beliefs. When you have strong belief driven by emotion, your mind automatically finds supporting evidence. Confirmation bias activates. You see what confirms the belief, ignore what contradicts it. Cold intelligence forces counter-evidence generation. I believe X because I feel Y. What evidence contradicts X? What would I see if X were false? This breaks confirmation bias. You must actively search for disconfirming evidence. Often, you find it. The emotional belief does not hold up to scrutiny. Second, ask what disinterested observer would see. Emotions make you partial observer. You have emotional investment in certain interpretations. This investment biases perception. Cold intelligence adopts outside view. If someone with no emotional stake observed this situation, what would they see? How would they interpret it? This mental shift often reveals emotional distortion. The outside observer would not see the threat as large, the insult as intentional, the uncertainty as unbearable. Your emotional state is creating distortion. Third, test predictions explicitly. Emotional reasoning generates predictions. This will fail. They are against me. Something bad will happen. Most people never explicitly test these predictions. They just believe them. Cold intelligence makes predictions explicit and checkable. I predict X will happen because I feel anxious about it. I will observe whether X actually happens. If it does not, my anxiety is creating false prediction. When predictions consistently fail, you learn your emotional state is distorting perception. This calibrates future thinking. Fourth, use quantification to check emotional magnification. Emotions magnify. Fear makes 20% risk feel like 80% risk. Anger makes small slight feel like major violation. Cold intelligence uses numbers to check magnification. I feel this risk is enormous. If I assign actual percentage, what is it? 15%. Then my feeling is magnifying 15% into enormous. Numbers cut through emotional distortion. They force precision. Often, the number reveals the emotion has exaggerated reality. Fifth, deliberately seek information that would change your mind. Emotional beliefs are resistant to contrary information. You have emotional investment in being right. Cold intelligence actively seeks information that would prove current belief wrong. What evidence would change my mind about this? Where could I find that evidence? This prevents emotional entrenchment. You remain open to discovering your emotional interpretation is incorrect. That openness preserves accurate perception. Here is what makes reality testing sustainable. It produces better outcomes. When you correct emotional distortions through systematic testing, your decisions improve. Better decisions create better results. Better results reinforce reality testing practice. You learn through direct experience that emotionally driven perceptions are often wrong, and cold systematic testing reveals accurate reality. Practice reality testing under pressure deliberately. Generate counter-evidence to emotional beliefs. Ask what disinterested observer would see. Test predictions explicitly. Use quantification to check magnification. Seek information that would change your mind. Maintain accurate perception of reality despite emotional pressure. This is the second component of cold intelligence. Component 3. Cognitive distance from emotional contagion. The third component of cold intelligence is maintaining cognitive separation from the emotional states of people around you. Emotions are contagious. When people around you are panicking, you absorb that panic. When a group is angry, you feel anger. When everyone is euphoric, you feel euphoria. This is emotional contagion. Most people are completely susceptible to emotional contagion. Their emotional state is determined by the emotional state of their environment. They panic when others panic. They become confident when others are confident. This makes their thinking quality dependent on the emotional state of people around them. When surrounded by panicking people, they think poorly because they are panicking. Cold intelligence maintains cognitive distance from emotional contagion. You can be surrounded by panicking people while remaining analytically calm. You observe their panic. You do not absorb it. Here is how to develop immunity to emotional contagion deliberately. First, recognize emotional contagion as it occurs. Most people do not notice they are absorbing others' emotions. The absorption is unconscious. They just find themselves feeling what others around them feel. Cold intelligence notices, everyone around me is panicking. I notice I am starting to feel panic. This is emotional contagion, not independent assessment of the situation. Recognition creates choice. Once you notice contagion happening, you can resist it. Without recognition, contagion is automatic. Second, physically separate from emotionally charged environments when possible. Emotional contagion is strongest with physical proximity. Being in a room full of panicking people makes resisting panic much harder. Cold intelligence creates physical distance when high-stakes thinking is needed. Step out of the room. Move to different location. Reduce exposure to emotional environment. This is not cowardice. This is cognitive protection. You cannot think clearly while being emotionally bombarded. Separation preserves thinking capacity. Third, use internal mantras that reinforce independent thinking. When surrounded by emotional contagion, most people have no explicit counter-message. The environmental message is loud. Their internal voice is silent. Cold intelligence uses explicit internal messaging. Their panic is not my panic. I assess this situation independently. Their fear is information about them, not about reality. These mantras create cognitive barrier. The environmental emotion is met with internal resistance. Contagion is reduced. Fourth, analyze why others are emotional rather than joining the emotion. Most people feel others' emotions and stop there. They join the emotional state without questioning it. Cold intelligence analyzes the emotion as data. Why are these people panicking? What interpretation are they making? Is that interpretation accurate? By analyzing rather than joining, you maintain separation. You are studying the emotional contagion as phenomenon rather than being infected by it. Fifth, remember that group emotional states are often wrong. Emotions spread through groups without regard for accuracy. Entire crowds can panic over nothing. Whole organizations can become euphoric about doomed ventures. Cold intelligence remembers this explicitly. Large groups of people being emotional together is not evidence that the emotion is justified. It is evidence that emotional contagion is occurring. This skepticism of group emotions protects against contagion. You do not assume group emotion reflects reality. You analyze reality independently. Here is what makes contagion resistance sustainable. It preserves your judgment in exactly the situations where judgment is most valuable. When everyone is panicking, clear thinking is rare and powerful. Your ability to resist panic creates enormous advantage. You make good decisions while others make fear-driven mistakes. This success reinforces contagion resistance. Practice emotional contagion immunity deliberately. Recognize contagion as it occurs. Physically separate from charged environments when possible. Use internal mantras that reinforce independence. Analyze others' emotions rather than joining them. Remember, group emotions are often wrong. Maintain independent emotional state regardless of environment. This is the third component of cold intelligence. Component 4. Decision protocols that eliminate emotional hijacking. The fourth component of cold intelligence is having predetermined decision protocols that execute regardless of emotional state. Most people make decisions in the moment based on how they feel. They have no predetermined framework. When emotion is high, the emotional mind makes the decision. This is decision hijacking. The emotion hijacks the decision process. Fear chooses avoidance. Anger chooses aggression. Urgency chooses rush. The decision is made by emotional impulse, not by analytical assessment. Cold intelligence uses predetermined decision protocols. Before emotion is high, you establish how decisions will be made. When emotion is high, you follow the protocol. Emotion does not get to hijack the process. Here is how to build decision protocols that resist emotional hijacking deliberately. First, establish explicit decision criteria before emotional pressure exists. Most people decide what matters when decision is in front of them. This allows emotion to determine what matters. Cold intelligence establishes decision criteria in advance. For decisions of type X, these are the factors that matter. These are the weights. This is the evaluation process. When emotional pressure appears, you already know how to decide. Emotion cannot rewrite criteria in the moment because criteria are predetermined. Second, require minimum information before any decision. Emotion creates urgency. Decide now. Fear wants to avoid. Anger wants to attack. The emotion wants immediate decision. Cold intelligence has minimum information requirements. I do not make decisions of this type without X, Y, and Z information. No exceptions. This forces delay. You must gather required information before deciding. The delay allows emotion to reduce before decision is made. Third, use if-then protocols that execute automatically. Most decisions are case by case. You evaluate each situation fresh. This allows emotion to influence each evaluation differently. Cold intelligence creates if-then protocols. If situation occurs, IDBN. No analysis needed. The protocol executes. Example: if I receive provocative message, I wait 24 hours before responding. No exceptions. The protocol removes decision. You do not evaluate whether to wait based on how angry you feel. The protocol is automatic. Fourth, require second-person review for high-stakes emotional decisions. When you are emotional, you cannot fully trust your own judgment. You know emotion might be distorting perception, but you cannot see the distortion clearly. Cold intelligence builds in external check. For high-stakes decisions made under emotional pressure, I must explain my reasoning to an involved second person before executing. That second person is not emotional about the situation. They can spot emotional reasoning you cannot see. They ask questions that reveal distortion. Fifth, create circuit breakers that prevent emotional cascade. Sometimes emotion builds on emotion. You make one fear-driven decision, which creates bad outcome, which increases fear, which drives worse decision. Emotional cascade. Cold intelligence has circuit breakers. If I make 2 consecutive decisions I later regret, I stop making decisions in this domain for 48 hours. I get outside help. The circuit breaker stops cascade. Recognizing pattern early prevents catastrophic sequence. Here is what makes decision protocols sustainable. They work. Decisions made by following protocols during emotional pressure consistently outperform decisions made by emotional impulse. You learn through repeated experience that protocols protect you from your own emotional hijacking. This makes protocol adherence natural. Practice decision protocol development deliberately. Establish decision criteria before emotional pressure. Require minimum information before any decision. Use if-then protocols that execute automatically. Require second-person review for emotional high-stakes decisions. Create circuit breakers that prevent cascade. Prevent emotion from hijacking decisions. This is the fourth component of cold intelligence. Component 5. Analytical stamina under sustained pressure. The fifth component of cold intelligence is maintaining analytical quality over extended periods of stress and pressure. Most people can think clearly for short periods under pressure. They can handle acute stress, one crisis decision, one high-pressure moment. Their analytical mind stays engaged briefly. But under sustained pressure, days or weeks of ongoing stress, their analytical stamina fails. They become mentally exhausted. Thinking quality degrades. They start making emotional reactive decisions because they no longer have energy for cold analysis. Cold intelligence maintains analytical stamina over extended periods. Thinking quality does not degrade over time. The 10th high-stakes decision receives same analytical rigor as the first. Here is how to build analytical stamina under sustained pressure deliberately. First, recognize decision fatigue and compensate for it. Every decision consumes mental energy. After many decisions, decision quality drops. This is decision fatigue. Most people do not recognize decision fatigue. They keep making decisions as quality silently degrades. Cold intelligence recognizes decision fatigue and compensates. I have made 15 decisions today. My decision quality is degraded. I will defer non-urgent decisions until tomorrow when analytical capacity is restored. This prevents low-quality decisions made under fatigue being disguised as normal decisions. Second, ruthlessly eliminate unnecessary decisions. Most people waste decision-making capacity on trivial choices. What to wear, what to eat, which email to answer first. Hundreds of small decisions that deplete capacity. Cold intelligence eliminates trivial decisions through automation. Same breakfast every day. Predetermined work uniform. Email response protocols. Maximum decisions are eliminated or automated. This preserves decision-making capacity for high-stakes analytical work. You do not waste mental energy on trivial choices. Third, schedule analytical work for peak cognitive hours. Mental energy varies throughout day. Most people have 2 to 4 hours of peak analytical capacity. Some in morning, some in afternoon. Cold intelligence schedules high-stakes analytical work during peak hours. Never make important decisions during mental low points. Defer until cognitive capacity is high. This ensures important thinking receives best analytical capacity available. Fourth, use systematic breaks that restore analytical capacity. Analytical work depletes mental energy. Breaks restore it, but not all breaks are equally restorative. Cold intelligence uses specific restoration practices. Physical movement, nature exposure, complete mental disengagement from problem. These restore analytical capacity more effectively than passive rest. Build these restoration breaks into extended pressure periods. They are not luxury. They are analytical capacity maintenance. Fifth, maintain physical fundamentals that support cognitive function. Sleep, nutrition, hydration, exercise. These physical factors dramatically affect analytical capacity. Most people neglect physical fundamentals during high-pressure periods. Too busy to sleep properly. Too stressed to eat well. Cold intelligence protects physical fundamentals, especially during pressure. My thinking quality depends on these fundamentals. Sacrificing them guarantees degraded decisions. You sleep, you eat well, you maintain hydration, you exercise, not despite pressure. Because of pressure. These practices preserve the analytical capacity pressure threatens to degrade. Here is what makes analytical stamina sustainable. It creates consistency. Your decision quality is reliable. Others know that your 10th crisis decision is as good as your first. This builds enormous trust and reputation. And you avoid catastrophic late-stage mistakes that people make when analytical stamina fails. Practice analytical stamina building deliberately. Recognize and compensate for decision fatigue. Ruthlessly eliminate unnecessary decisions. Schedule analytical work for peak cognitive hours. Use systematic breaks that restore capacity. Maintain physical fundamentals that support cognition. Maintain analytical quality over extended pressure. This is the 5th component of cold intelligence. Component 6. Rapid cognitive reframing under stress. The 6th component of cold intelligence is the ability to quickly shift cognitive frames when stress is creating unhelpful perspectives. Stress creates cognitive frames. How you interpret situations. These frames determine emotional response and available options. Under stress, most people get locked into unhelpful frames and cannot shift out. Example: situation interpreted as threat creates fear and defensive responses. Same situation interpreted as challenge creates engagement and active responses. The reality is identical. The frame determines response. Most people under stress cannot reframe. They are locked into initial interpretation. If first frame is unhelpful, they stay stuck in unhelpful perspective. Cold intelligence can rapidly reframe. You recognize when current frame is creating unhelpful responses. You deliberately shift to more useful frame. This changes emotional response and expands available options. Here is how to develop rapid cognitive reframing ability deliberately. First, recognize frames as interpretations, not reality. Most people experience their frame as reality. This is a threat, not I am interpreting this as a threat. Cold intelligence recognizes frames are constructions. I am currently framing this as threat. That is one possible interpretation. Are there other frames? This recognition creates flexibility. If frame is interpretation, it can be changed. If frame is reality, you are stuck with it. Second, maintain library of alternative frames for common stresses. Most stressful situations can be framed multiple ways. But under stress, you cannot generate alternatives. Your stress mind defaults to automatic frame. Cold intelligence builds frame library in advance. Before stress, you identify common stresses and develop multiple frames for each. Example: performance pressure. Frames: test of competence as threat, opportunity to demonstrate capability as challenge, chance to learn from high-stakes situation as growth, meaningless temporary discomfort as dismissal. When performance pressure appears, you already have 4 frames ready. You choose which serves you best. Third, ask what frame would make this manageable. Sometimes you are stuck in frame that makes situation feel overwhelming. This is catastrophic and unfixable. Cold intelligence asks, what frame would make this manageable? How would someone who handles this well frame it? Then you deliberately adopt that frame, not because it is true, but because it is useful. The situation is the same. The frame makes it actionable. Fourth, use frame shifting questions as circuit breakers. When you notice stress response is unhelpful, you need fast reframe. PI-developed questions trigger this shift. What else could this mean? How would I see this if I were not afraid? What opportunity is hidden in this problem? What would this look like as challenge rather than threat? These questions force perspective shift. They break fixation on unhelpful frame and open alternative interpretations. Fifth, practice reframing past stressful situations. Reframing is mental skill. Like any skill, it improves with practice. But practicing during acute stress is hard. Cold intelligence practices on past situations. Take previous stressful experience. Identify frame you used. Generate 5 alternative frames. Evaluate which would have been most useful. This practice builds reframing muscle. When new stress appears, you can reframe quickly because you have practiced the skill extensively. Here is what makes rapid reframing sustainable. It produces better outcomes. When you can shift from threat frame to challenge frame, you engage rather than avoid. Engagement produces better results than avoidance. Those better results reinforce reframing practice. You learn reframing is not just cognitive trick. It is practical tool that changes outcomes. Practice rapid cognitive reframing deliberately. Recognize frames as interpretations, not reality. Maintain library of alternative frames for common stresses. Ask what frame would make situation manageable. Use frame-shifting questions as circuit breakers. Practice reframing past situations. Shift cognitive perspectives quickly under stress. This is the sixth component of cold intelligence. Component 7. Metacognitive monitoring of thinking quality. The seventh and final component of cold intelligence is the ability to monitor your own thinking quality in real time and recognize when emotion is degrading that quality. Most people are not aware of their thinking quality. They think and assume the thinking is good. They have no metacognitive awareness, no ability to step back and evaluate whether their current thinking is analytical or emotional, clear or clouded. This means they cannot correct degraded thinking. They do not know it has degraded. They make poor decisions while believing they are thinking clearly. Cold intelligence includes metacognitive monitoring. You can observe your own thinking process. You notice when thinking quality drops. You recognize emotional contamination as it occurs. You can intervene before bad decisions are made. Here is how to develop metacognitive monitoring capability deliberately. First, establish baseline thinking quality markers. You need to know what good thinking feels like so you can recognize when thinking has degraded. Cold intelligence identifies markers of quality thinking. When I am thinking clearly, I can generate multiple perspectives. I consider consequences systematically. I do not feel rushed. I can articulate my reasoning simply. These markers become diagnostic. When you cannot do these things, your thinking quality has degraded. Second, build regular thinking quality check-ins. Most people never stop to check thinking quality. They just continue thinking without evaluation. Cold intelligence builds check-ins into decision process. Before any significant decision, how is my thinking quality right now? Can I generate alternatives easily? Am I seeing this clearly or through emotional filter? This pause for self-assessment catches degraded thinking before it produces bad decisions. Third, recognize thought patterns that indicate emotional contamination. Certain thought patterns signal emotional reasoning. Absolutist thinking like this will definitely fail. Catastrophizing like this is the worst possible outcome. Black-white thinking like there are only two options. Cold intelligence recognizes these patterns as red flags. I notice I am thinking in absolutes. This suggests emotional contamination. My fear is making definites out of probabilities. Pattern recognition triggers correction. You know this thought pattern indicates degraded quality. You pause and reassess. Fourth, use external tools to check reasoning. When you suspect thinking quality is degraded but cannot see it clearly, external tools help. Write out reasoning. Explain logic to someone else. Draw a decision tree. These external representations make flaws visible that are invisible when logic stays internal. Cold intelligence uses these tools deliberately when self-monitoring suggests possible degradation. I think my reasoning is sound, but I feel emotional. I will write it out to check. Fifth, develop trusted external monitors who can check your thinking. No matter how good your metacognitive monitoring becomes, you have blind spots. You cannot always see your own emotional reasoning. Cold intelligence builds relationships with people who can serve as thinking quality checks. When I am under pressure and need to make high-stakes decision, I talk it through with X. They spot emotional reasoning I cannot see. These external monitors are not decision makers. They are quality checkers. They tell you when your thinking is compromised. You still decide, but you decide with better information about your thinking quality. Here is what makes metacognitive monitoring sustainable. It prevents regret. Decisions made with degraded thinking quality led to regret. I was not thinking clearly. I let emotion drive that decision. Metacognitive monitoring catches degraded thinking before bad decisions are made. This prevents regret. Over time, you learn to trust your metacognitive monitoring because it consistently protects you from your own emotional reasoning. Practice metacognitive monitoring deliberately. Establish baseline thinking quality markers. Build regular quality check-ins. Recognize thought patterns indicating emotional contamination. Use external tools to check reasoning. Develop trusted external monitors. Monitor your own thinking quality in real time. This is the seventh component of cold intelligence. Cold intelligence as crisis advantage. You now understand the 7 components of cold intelligence that enable clear thinking when everyone around you panics. Emotional awareness without emotional reasoning. Systematic reality testing under pressure. Cognitive distance from emotional contagion. Decision protocols that eliminate hijacking. Analytical stamina under sustained pressure. Rapid cognitive reframing under stress. Metacognitive monitoring of thinking quality. These are not abstract concepts. These are specific mental capabilities you can deliberately build through focused practice. Here is what you must understand. Cold intelligence is competitive advantage precisely when advantage matters most. When situations are calm and stress is low, many people can think reasonably well. The gap between hot and cold thinkers is small. Your cold intelligence does not create much advantage. But when crisis hits and pressure is high, most people's thinking quality collapses. They panic. They make fear-driven decisions. They cannot see clearly. They become unreliable. This is when cold intelligence creates massive advantage. You remain analytical when others are emotional. You see reality clearly when others are distorted by fear. You make optimal decisions when others are making terrible mistakes. The gap between your thinking quality and average thinking quality becomes enormous. That gap is power. Most people will never develop cold intelligence because they believe emotion should drive action. They think feeling strongly means something is important. They confuse emotional intensity with truth. This belief keeps them trapped in emotional reasoning. They cannot separate thinking from feeling. Under pressure, their emotions hijack their decisions. They are unreliable when reliability matters most. You can choose differently. You can build thinking that operates independently of emotional state. You can develop ability to feel intense emotion while simultaneously analyzing reality clearly. You can become the person who thinks clearly when everyone else is panicking. Here is how to begin building cold intelligence immediately. Choose 2 components to focus on this month, not all 7. 2. The ones that address your specific tendencies under pressure. For each component, implement one specific practice this week. Emotional awareness. Label 3 emotions explicitly today without acting on them. Reality testing. Generate counter-evidence to one emotionally driven belief. Contagion immunity. Physically separate from one emotionally charged situation and analyze it from distance. Decision protocols. Establish minimum information requirements for one type of decision. Analytical stamina. Eliminate 5 trivial decisions through automation. Cognitive reframing. Generate 3 alternative frames for one current stressor. Metacognitive monitoring. Before your next significant decision, explicitly check your thinking quality. 1 practice per component. 2 components total. This week. Next week, continue those practices and add new ones. These capabilities compound. In 1 month, you will notice yourself remaining calmer under pressure. In 3 months, people will start commenting that you handle stress unusually well. In 1 year, you will be the person others turn to when panic spreads. This is not about suppressing emotion. This is about preventing emotion from degrading thinking quality. About maintaining analytical clarity when clarity is most valuable. About thinking well precisely when thinking well matters most. The person who thinks clearly in crisis has power that person who panics can never access. That person is relied upon, trusted with high-stakes decisions, positioned for responsibility. Stop letting emotion degrade your intelligence. Start developing cold thinking that operates independently of emotional state. Feel everything. Think clearly anyway. Remain analytical when everyone around you is emotional. Develop cold intelligence. Build crisis advantage. Think clearly when others panic. Begin now. If you made it to the end of this audiobook, you are serious about building real capability. Most people stop halfway through. You stayed. That tells me something about your commitment to becoming better. This is exactly the kind of person this channel is built for. People who want substance over motivation, systems over inspiration, deep frameworks over surface tactics. If that resonates with you, subscribe to this channel. Every audiobook here follows the same principle. Real capability development through practical frameworks you can apply immediately. No fluff, no motivational empty calories, just systematic approaches to becoming genuinely better. New audiobooks on competence, discipline, influence, and strategic thinking publish regularly. Subscribe so you do not miss them. And if this audiobook added value, leave a comment sharing which principle or framework you will implement first. I read every single comment. Your engagement helps these audiobooks reach other serious people who will actually use this information. Thank you for listening all the way through. Now go build what you learned.